Have you ever opened your child's IEP and immediately felt overwhelmed? Maybe it's 20 or 30 pages long, filled with educational terms, and you're wondering, am I actually supposed to understand all of this? If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. The good news is that you don't have to memorize every page or understand every educational term. Once you know what each section is meant to tell you, reading an IEP becomes much less intimidating. Today, we're going to walk through the major sections of an IEP together. I'll explain what each section means, why it matters, and what every parent should be looking for. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Navigating Special Education Together. I'm Rochelle Armstrong, founder of Liberated Hands, OPWDT support broker, parent advocate, and autism mom. My mission is to help parents understand special education in plain language so they can confidently advocate for their children. In our last episode, we talked about knowing your rights during the IEP process. We discussed the important role parents play as equal members of the IEP team and the rights you have throughout the process. But once the meeting is over and you receive your child's IEP, many parents ask the same question. Now what? How do you actually read this document? Where should you start? What information matters most? Today, we're going to answer those questions together by breaking down the IEP one section at a time. So the first section of the IEP is the student information, and this usually contains your child's basic information, including their name, date of birth, grade, school, disability classification, and the meeting date. Although this section seems simple, don't skip it. Take a moment to make sure all the information is accurate. Something as small as an incorrect service date or classification can create confusion later. Section 2 is the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. And this is one section that I encourage every parent to pay close attention to because it should clearly explain your child's strengths, their academic abilities, their communication skills, their social and emotional development, their functional skills, and areas where additional support is needed. So ask yourself, does this accurately describe my child? If you notice important strengths or challenges are missing or something no longer reflects your child, don't be afraid to bring it up. Your input is an important part of the IEP process. Remember, the rest of the IEP, including goals and services, should be based on the information found here. So if this section isn't accurate, the rest of the plan may not fully address your child's needs. Thirdly, Section 3, which is the annual goals. The annual goals answer one important question, which is what is my child expected to learn over the next year? When you're reviewing the goals, remember that strong goals should be specific, measurable, based on your child's individual needs, realistic but challenging. As you're reviewing the goals, ask yourself, can I clearly understand what my child is expected to achieve? How will progress be measured? When will I receive updates? If a goal feels vague or difficult to measure, don't hesitate to ask for clarification. The fourth section is the special education services, and this section outlines exactly what services your child will receive. Examples include special education instruction, speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, counseling. Don't just look at the name of the service. Pay close attention to the details, including how often the service will be provided, how long each session lasts, whether services are individual or in a group, where services will take place. For example, your child's IEP should say, speech therapy, 2 sessions per week, 30 minutes each in a small group within the speech therapy room. Or it may say occupational therapy, 1 individual session per week for 45 minutes in the therapy room. This also gives you something to reference later. So if your child is supposed to receive 2 30-minute speech sessions each week, you'll know exactly what services are outlined in the IEP. The fifth section of the IEP is accommodations and modifications. Parents often hear these terms used together, but they are not the same thing. Accommodations help your child access learning without changing what they're expected to learn. Examples include extra time, preferential seating, visual supports, frequent breaks, directions read aloud. For example, if 2 students are taking the same math test, an accommodation might allow your child an extra 30 minutes to complete it. The test is the same, but the only difference is the support provided. Modifications, on the other hand, change what your child is expected to learn or complete. For example, while the rest of the class is solving 20 multiplication problems, A student with a modification may only be expected to complete 10 problems or work on a different skill altogether. If you're unsure whether your child is receiving accommodations, modifications, or both, ask your IEP team to explain how those supports will affect your child's instruction and learning expectations. Section 6 is placement. This section explains where your child will receive services. It's important to remember that placement should always be based on your child's individual needs, not simply on what's most convenient or available. Every child deserves to be educated in the least restrictive environment that's appropriate for them. Don't be afraid to ask why that placement was recommended and how it supports your child's individual needs. And the final section we will discuss is section 7, and that is progress monitoring. This deals with how the school measures process whether your child is making progress toward their annual goals. It shouldn't be based on guesswork or opinions, but it should be based on data. An IEP isn't just about setting goals, it's also about tracking whether those goals are being met. For example, if your child's reading goal is to correctly answer comprehension questions with 80% accuracy, the teacher should be collecting data throughout the year to see whether your child is moving toward that goal. How often will I receive progress reports? What data is being collected? What happens if my child isn't making progress? Remember, an IEP is meant to be a living document. If your child isn't making meaningful progress, the IEP team can meet to review the data and discuss whether changes to the goals, services, or supports are needed. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with 3 questions to keep in mind whenever you're reviewing an IEP. Does this IEP accurately describe my child? How will progress be measured? What happens if my child isn't making progress? If you'd like a more detailed discussion about the questions parents should ask during an IEP meeting, be sure to watch my episode, 5 Things Every Parent Should Know About Special Education. In that episode, I walk through those conversations in much greater detail. I know an IEP can feel overwhelming when you first receive it, but remember you don't have to understand everything all at once. Take it one section at a time, ask questions when something isn't clear, and know that every question you ask helps you become a stronger advocate for your child. If you're just joining us, this is part of our Navigating Special Education Together series. We've already covered evaluations, IEPs versus 504 plans, common IEP mistakes, parent rights, and more. I'll link the playlist below so you can watch each episode in order. If you found today's episode helpful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with another parent who may need encouragement. Don't forget to download today's free parent toolkit where you'll find an IEP review checklist, important questions to ask, and a simple guide you can use during your next meeting. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of Navigating Special Education Together.